My parents rewrote their will on Christmas Eve and threw a private party to celebrate it. I found out from a photo on social media while I was sitting alone in my tiny apartment staring at a property tax receipt with my name on it. The picture loaded slowly on my old phone. When it cleared, I saw my parents, my younger brother, and what looked like half the extended family crowded around a long table in a rented hall. Red and gold Christmas decorations hung everywhere, fairy lights draped like stars. In the center, my mother held up a crystal glass, my father beaming beside her. The caption under the photo read, "Family only. Tonight we celebrate our new will and the future of the Lane family." My last name, my blood, my absence. I felt the kind of cold that has nothing to do with winter. I had just wired money that morning to cover their last overdue tax bill so they could keep that house. The same house they were toasting in front of with everyone they considered family. Everyone but me. Comments poured in beneath the photo. "So happy for you. Such a beautiful family. You deserve everything." My brother Ryan had added a line that made my vision blur for a second. "Could not be prouder to carry on the family legacy." The family legacy. The house, the inheritance, the will. All the things I had helped protect while my own life shrank to fit inside a one-bedroom rental in Cleveland. My thumb hovered over the screen. I could have just closed the app. Let it pass. Let it be another quiet wound that nobody would ever see. Instead, I tapped the comment box and typed with steady hands. "Looks beautiful. Property taxes and hospital bills are all yours from now on. Congratulations." I hit post before I could reconsider. For a heartbeat, my words sat there like a crack in glass. Then the screen refreshed and the photo disappeared. Removed. Hidden. Erased. The phone vibrated in my palm. Call from mom. Call from mom. Call from Ryan. Call from mom again. I set the phone face down on the counter and listened to it buzz against the cheap laminate like a trapped insect. That was the night I realized the Lane family did not see me as a daughter. I was a walking credit line, a convenient guarantor, a quiet sponsor of their perfect image. And I had just announced my retirement. My name is Meredith Lane. I am 34 years old, and for most of my life, I was the reliable one, the responsible daughter, the one who always did the right thing even when nobody was watching, especially when nobody was thanking me. Growing up in our small Ohio town, my parents loved to say they treated my brother and me the same. It sounded good over Thanksgiving dinner or at church potlucks when people praised them for having such well-behaved kids. But even as a little girl, I understood that love in our house was measured, weighed, quietly ranked. There was the love my mother had for Ryan, warm and noisy and overflowing. Every drawing he made went up on the fridge. Every minor victory was celebrated. When he hit a little league home run, she threw him a backyard party complete with cupcakes shaped like baseballs. Then there was the love she had for me. Practical, conditional, useful. When I brought home a science fair ribbon in middle school, she folded it carefully and placed it inside a drawer with old receipts. She said she did not want me to get a big head. When I spent an entire summer helping my father repaint the house, my mother told the neighbors Ryan is such a good son, always around for his parents, even though he had not lifted a brush. That was the pattern. My effort, his credit. My sacrifice, his story. I told myself it did not matter. That I was the mature one. The one who understood that favoritism was just part of family life. After all, my grandmother used to say, some children need more attention. Apparently, my brother needed the praise. I just needed to be useful. The day of my 18th birthday, my mother forgot entirely. She was too busy helping Ryan get ready for his senior prom. I watched her fuss over his tie, fixing it 3 times while my untouched cake sat on the kitchen counter. When she finally realized what day it was, she laughed and said, "You know I love you, Mary. You do not need a party to prove it." I did not argue. I never did. I took the leftover cake into my room, cut a small slice, and told myself it was fine. I would go to college soon. I would build my own life, my own company, my own future. Years later, when I earned a big promotion at the accounting firm in Cleveland, I called home to share the news. My mother answered, listened politely, then said, "That is nice, honey. By the way, Ryan is thinking about starting his own business. Your father and I are so proud." I remember sitting at my desk, looking out at the downtown skyline, hearing the clatter of office printers and keyboards around me. It hit me then that no matter how high I climbed in their eyes, I would always be the background character in Ryan's story. That realization could have set me free. Instead, it pushed me deeper into a role I did not recognize yet: the fixer, the solver, the one who would always come when they called. The first time my parents asked for money, it sounded small and temporary. "We are just a little behind," Mom had said on the phone, her tone soft and embarrassed. The family business hit a slow patch. "You know how the economy is. You have such a steady job, Mary. Could you help us with this one mortgage payment? We will pay you back as soon as things pick up." I could hear the strain in her voice, the little tremor she always used when she wanted something, but did not want to say it out loud. My father never came to the phone during those conversations. He was there, I knew. I could almost picture him in his old recliner staring at the muted television, letting Mom do the talking. I paid the mortgage that month, then the property taxes, then a hospital bill when my father had a scare with his heart. The promised payback never came. The requests did. Every time they said, "We hate to ask," but I wired the money. I told myself it was temporary, that I was helping them over a rough patch. That is what adult children do, I thought. They step up. They protect their parents. At work, my colleagues talked about vacations, investments, early retirement plans. I rearranged my budget to squeeze in yet another transfer. I did not buy new clothes unless something was falling apart. My idea of a big treat was a takeout dinner eaten on the couch with the television on low. One evening, my coworker and closest friend Tasha caught me staring at my banking app with that tight, numb feeling in my chest. "They ask again," she said, sliding into the break room chair across from me. I nodded without looking up. "How much this time?" "Enough," I said. She tilted her head, studying me. "You know this is not normal, right?" I snorted. "People help their parents all the time." "Helping is one thing," she said. "Being their silent sponsor is another." I wanted to defend my parents, to explain that they had worked hard their whole lives, that the family business had always been unstable, that medical bills in this country were a mess, that Ryan was still getting on his feet after his latest failed startup. But the words caught somewhere between my heart and my mouth, because Tasha had seen the pattern up close. The way my phone lit up only when something was wrong. The way I always looked guilty when I said, "I cannot go out tonight, I have to send money home." She pointed at my screen. "You know what this looks like to me." "What?" "A company that assumes its emergency fund will always refill itself," she said. "No plan, no gratitude, just expectation." I laughed, but it was hollow. "You think my family sees me as an emergency fund?" "I think they see you as a line item they never have to earn," she replied. I brushed it off, changed the subject, made a joke about Reddit threads where people traded wild family drama stories and revenge fantasies. But later that night, lying in bed, I scrolled through one of those subreddits reading posts about daughters disowned over inheritances, siblings fighting over a will, parents who played toxic favoritism until their children cut them off. Those stories felt distant, like exaggerated internet tales told for clicks. I had no idea I was reading a rough draft of my future. The call about the Christmas party came a week before the photo. I was at my desk finishing year-end reports when my cell phone lit up with my mother's name. I considered letting it go to voicemail, then sighed and answered. "Hey, Mom!" Her voice poured through the speaker, bright and overly sweet. "Mary, hi, sweetheart. Am I catching you at a bad time?" "You usually are," I thought, but said I can talk for a minute. She asked about work, about the weather in Cleveland, about whether I had plans for Christmas. There was a stiffness under her small talk, like she was circling something. Finally, she cleared her throat. "So your father and I have some special news." I leaned back in my chair. "Okay, we decided to renew our vows," she said, her tone swelling with importance. "On Christmas Eve, at the country club. Ryan and the family helped us plan it." That explained the hint of triumph in her voice. My mother loved big gestures, especially when they could be photographed. "That is nice," I said. And she added, "We are also going to sign the new will that night. We thought it would be symbolic, passing on the legacy while celebrating our marriage." The legacy, the house, the family business, the accounts I kept afloat. My throat tightened. "That sounds important." "It is," she said quickly, "which is why this is a little awkward." There it was, the thing she had been circling. "The club has limited seating," she rushed on, "and there are so many people we needed to invite. Some of your father's clients, relatives from out of state, close friends from the company. We had to make some hard choices." I stared at the spreadsheet open on my computer, the lines of numbers blurring. "What does that mean, Mom?" "There will not be enough seats," she said. "And we did not want you to feel like you had to travel in winter. You know how busy you always are." She was not even saying the words. She was decorating them with concern, wrapping exclusion in faux kindness. So I said slowly, "You are having a Christmas vow renewal and will signing, and you are not inviting me." She exhaled with obvious relief that I had said it for her. "Oh, honey, it is not about not wanting you there. It is just logistics. You know how these things are. And you are so independent. Ryan is here helping with everything every day." I almost laughed. Ryan, who lived in their town, drifting between jobs, always presented as the devoted son. Ryan, who had never wired a payment in his life. I swallowed hard. "If it is about logistics, you could have made space." There was a pause. "We love you, Meredith. You do not need a chair at a party to know that." The way she said my full name made it sound like a scolding. After we hung up, I sat frozen in my office chair while fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Tasha appeared at my doorway. "You okay?" "My parents are hosting a Christmas vow renewal and will signing I managed. Limited seating. I did not make the list." Her eyes widened. "You are their daughter." "Apparently, I am more of an out-of-town consultant," I said, my voice brittle. I tried to pretend it did not matter. I told myself it was just another family slight in a long line of them. But a small, fragile part of me had always believed that when it came down to something big, something permanent like a will, they would remember who had kept everything from falling apart. I was wrong. The night of the party, Cleveland was wrapped in snow and holiday lights. I cleaned my apartment just to have something to do. I watched a Christmas movie on low volume, half listening to scripted family reunions where people apologized and cried and forgave each other in under 2 hours. Real life rarely plays out like a made-for-television special. The silence in my apartment felt wide and echoing. No invitation, no call to say, "We changed our minds, come anyway." My phone stayed stubbornly blank except for a promotional email from a company offering discounted deliveries on Christmas cookies. Around 8 in the evening, I broke. I opened the app I had sworn not to open. The first thing that popped up was Ryan's post. A photo taken inside the country club ballroom. Warm golden lighting, white tablecloths, red poinsettias. A huge banner behind my parents that read, "Celebrating a lifetime of love." In the photo, my mother was glowing in an ivory dress, my father in a dark suit, his arm wrapped around her. Ryan stood beside them, hand on my mother's shoulder like he was the co-host of her life. Around them, relatives I barely recognized, people from the family business, neighbors who used to ask me to babysit their kids. The caption punched me. "Finally, everyone who matters is in one room, family only. Everyone who matters, family only." The words hit harder than any slap. I read the comments, each one a tiny blade. "You deserve this, Linda. So proud of the legacy you are leaving your son. Beautiful family." I felt heat behind my eyes, but the tears did not fall. Something colder settled in instead. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I did not plan what I wrote. The sentence formed itself out of years of swallowed words. "Looks perfect," I typed. "I will stop paying the property taxes and medical bills since family only is handling the future now. Merry Christmas." I hesitated for half a second, then hit post. The chatty hum of comments went silent. My words sat there under all that praise, a single sharp line cutting through the performance. Within minutes, the photo disappeared. My phone started ringing, buzzing so hard it vibrated across the counter. "Mom, Ryan, Mom again." Then a text popped up. "How dare you embarrass us like that," my mother wrote. "You are selfish and cruel." Selfish. The word almost made me laugh. I put the phone on silent, poured myself a glass of cheap wine, and stood at the window watching the snow fall in the alley behind my building. In that quiet, something inside me hardened, not into bitterness, but into resolve. They had made their choice, and I was finally about to make mine. The first choice I made was simple. I stopped paying. No more automatic transfers on the first of every month. No more quiet rescue missions when a bill notice came with the word "overdue" stamped in red. I opened my banking app, canceled the scheduled payments, and felt a strange lightness in my chest, like loosening a belt that had been cinched too tight for too long. The first week afterward was eerily quiet. No calls, no emails. I almost wondered if I had imagined how dependent they really were. In the second week, my mother texted, "The mortgage company keeps calling. Is there some kind of issue with your account, honey?" I stared at the message, the faux innocence in it, the way she feigned confusion as if the money had just magically appeared all these years. I did not answer. A day later, a new message. "We do not want to bother you, but they say this is urgent." Urgent. The word she loved to use when she wanted to turn everyday anxiety into my responsibility. Again, I said nothing. Ryan joined in publicly. He posted a photo with my mother, her eyes red, his arm around her shoulders captioned, "Some people forget who raised them and who kept a roof over their head. We will be okay. Karma comes around." The comments flooded in. "Stay strong. You deserve better. Family can hurt you the most." He answered each with heart reactions and sad faces, playing the devoted son, the victim of a cold older sister. I read the thread once, then closed the app. Ignoring them did not stop reality from knocking, though. About a week later, I found a thick envelope in my mailbox with the return address of the mortgage company. My stomach clenched. I nearly threw it away without opening it, assuming it was just a notice that payments had stopped. Instead, what I found inside made my vision tunnel. It was a notification of a home equity loan tied to my parents' house. A large sum had been borrowed against the property only a few months earlier. The loan was behind on payments. My name was listed as a co-borrower and guarantor. I sat down hard on the edge of my couch, the paper shaking in my hands. I had never signed anything for a home equity loan. I had never agreed to be a co-borrower. The letter said the agreement had been executed electronically, authorized through a joint account I had once set up to make it easier to pay their bills. I had not thought twice about leaving that access in place. They were my parents. Why would they use it for anything else? I flipped through these pages until I found the digital signature block. There it was. My full name. A scrawl that looked like my own. A timestamp from midsummer at a time of day when I had been in a staff meeting miles away. My heart pounded in my ears. Perhaps there was some mistake. Perhaps the bank had merged accounts incorrectly. Perhaps there was a clerical error. But underneath the denial, another possibility rose quiet and relentless. Someone in that house had used my stored authorization to sign for a loan without my knowledge. My family had not just leaned on my generosity, they had forged my consent. That night I did not sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with the envelope, my laptop open, my fingers hovering over the trackpad. I reread every line, every clause. The more I read, the more another word crept in. Fraud. The next morning I called the number listed for the loan officer. A calm voice answered and introduced himself as Jordan Blake from the mortgage company. "Thank you for calling, Ms. Lane," he said. "How can I help you?" I forced my voice to stay steady. "I received a notice about a home equity loan on my parents' property. It lists me as a co-borrower. I never agreed to that. I never signed anything." He paused. "Let me pull up the account." I listened to his keyboard clack while my heart beat like a drum in my throat. "All right," he said after a moment. "I see the account. It was opened in late July. The primary borrowers are Charles and Linda Lane, with you listed as co-borrower and guarantor." "I never signed for that," I repeated. "The loan was executed electronically through our secure system," he said carefully. "It shows your authorization." "Can you send me the documents?" I asked. He sounded cautious now. "We can email you copies of the signed agreement. If you believe the authorization was fraudulent, we will need to escalate this." By the end of the day, the documents arrived in my inbox. I opened the file and stared at the digital signature page, my name stamped underneath a squiggle that looked too much like my own to dismiss as a glitch. Jordan called again. "Miss Lane, our records show this was authenticated via a login attached to your email and a code sent to your parents' landline." I closed my eyes. I had set up that login years ago when I helped them refinance to a lower rate. I had told the system to remember my information. I had given permission for their number to be used for verification, and someone at some point had walked through that open door. "I want to know the exact time and method that signature was recorded," I said. "If possible, I want the IP addresses and any logs associated with it." There was a pause. "Are you stating that you did not consent to this loan?" "Yes." "Then I have to inform you," he said, "that this may qualify as identity theft and fraud. We are obligated to investigate and possibly involve our internal legal department." Identity theft, fraud. Two cold clinical terms for something that felt painfully intimate. When we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. I had always known my family took advantage of me. I had accepted it as the price of staying loosely connected to them. But this was different. This was not manipulation or guilt. This was a crime. I thought of my parents standing in that Christmas photo beneath the banner about legacy drinking champagne to a future built partly on money pulled from that loan. I thought of Ryan's smug caption about family only and carrying on the Lane name. I thought of how many times my mother had told me to trust her, to be patient, to remember that everything would be made right in the inheritance someday. Inheritance, will, family business, All those words swirled together, suddenly sinister. This was no longer about being left out of a party. This was about whether I was willing to let them write the next chapter of my life without my consent. I found my lawyer through a woman in my building who had divorced a husband who hid their assets in a shell company. She handed me a card and said, "If you want someone who knows how to deal with financial betrayal, call Angela." Angela Ruiz's office was in an old brick building downtown, the kind of place that smelled like coffee and paper and quiet anger. She sat across from me listening without interrupting as I laid out the story. The years of payments, the exclusion from the Christmas vow renewal, the social media post, the new will I had not been invited to hear, the sudden loan, the forged authorization. When I finished, she steepled her fingers and asked only one question. "Do you have copies of everything?" I slid a folder across the desk, packed with printed emails, bank notices, and screenshots. She went through them methodically, her dark eyes sharp and focused. When she reached the loan agreement, she tapped the signature line. "This is classic misuse of stored authorization," she said. "Because you previously allowed them access, they thought it was theirs to use whenever it suited them." "Can I get out of it?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "And more than that, we can make sure they cannot do it again. But I need you to understand something." "What?" "There will be consequences for them, real ones, financial, possibly legal. This is not like refusing to send another check. This is you drawing a line and asking the law to stand on it with you. If we move forward, you cannot half forgive them midway through because they cry or because a birthday or Christmas goes by." I swallowed, my throat felt tight. I thought of my grandmother, the only person in my family who had ever seemed to see me clearly. She had once told me, "Being a good person does not mean letting people walk across you like a rug." She had left me a small savings bond in her will when she passed, a quiet acknowledgement that she knew I would need some kind of safety net of my own. My mother had called it an indulgence. Now, sitting in Angela's office, I realized my grandmother had been the only one who believed I might someday choose myself. I took a deep breath. "What do we do first?" Angela outlined the plan with the calm precision of someone who had walked this road with other clients. "We would file a formal dispute with the mortgage company claiming fraudulent use of my digital authorization. We would request all logs, recordings, and verification steps. We would send a certified letter to my parents instructing them to cease any use of my name or credit and informing them that all future communication about the loan must go through my attorney. Depending on what the investigation revealed, the bank might refer the matter to the district attorney. There could be a civil complaint, possibly even criminal charges, especially if there were patterns of misrepresentation." I felt sick and oddly steady at the same time. "What about their will?" I asked quietly. She shrugged. "They can leave their estate to whoever they want. They can cut you out entirely. But right now, their estate is sitting on top of a house they may very well lose if this loan defaults. So my revenge," I said slowly, "is simply refusing to be their safety net anymore." "It is not revenge," Angela said. "It is self-defense. You are not pushing them off a cliff. You are just stepping out of the way and letting gravity do what it does." Her words lodged deep in me. For the first time in my life, someone was telling me that letting my family face the consequences of their actions was not cruel. It was fair. I did not reach out to my parents. For once, I let them make the first move. It did not take long. A few days after Angela sent the certified letter, Ryan texted, "Mom wants to have brunch. Just us. She says we need to talk about all this lawyer nonsense." I stared at the message. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Another part wanted to look them in the face one last time and see if there was even a flicker of remorse. Where and when I wrote back. "We met at a chain restaurant on the edge of town. The kind of place with syrup bottles on the table and laminated menus sticky from too many hands. I arrived early and sat at a booth near the window, the folder from Angela resting beside my coffee cup. My parents walked in together. My mother was dressed like she was going to a church luncheon, hair perfectly curled, lipstick precise. My father trailed behind, shoulders hunched, gaze fixed on the floor. Ryan came last, phone in hand, fingers flying like he was texting someone a play-by-play. "Meredith," my mother said, sliding into the seat across from me, "your hair is getting long." "We are not here to talk about my hair," I replied. She flinched. Ryan rolled his eyes. My father cleared his throat and reached for the menu as if pancakes might shield him from what was coming. We ordered out of habit more than hunger, the small talk bumping around the table like marbles. Finally, my mother set down her coffee cup with a little clink. "This has all gone too far," she announced. "Lawyers, letters, accusations. We are family. We do not handle things this way." I looked at her. "You handled things your way when you forged my authorization." Her face tightened. "Forged is a strong word." "Accurate, though," I said calmly. Ryan jumped in. "You always exaggerate, Mary. We just used the account you set up. You knew we needed the equity for the business and for the wedding expenses." Wedding. Right. Ryan's engagement had lasted 6 weeks before imploding, but not before my parents had plastered social media with posts about passing the family home down to him and his future bride one day. "And you thought taking out a loan in my name without telling me was fair?" I asked. My mother's eyes flashed. "We were going to pay it back. You know how hard things have been with the company. You know your father's health. It was all for the family." "For the family," I repeated, "or for Ryan." Silence fell heavy as wet wool. I reached into the folder and slid a copy of the loan documents across the table along with the bank logs Angela had obtained. "Here," I said. "This shows the exact time the loan was signed. The login came from my account. The verification code went to your landline. I was at work in Cleveland in a meeting at that exact time." My father stared at the paper like it was written in a language he did not understand. My mother's cheeks flushed pink. Ryan's jaw tightened. "You did not have to escalate this," he muttered. I met his eyes. "I did not escalate it. You did the minute you decided my name was a tool, not a boundary." My mother sniffed. "We are being treated like criminals over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding is when you forget a birthday," I said, my voice low. "This is fraud. We only did what we thought was best to keep the house," she insisted. "We thought you would understand. You have always taken care of us." That was the moment the truth clicked with painful clarity. They did not see this as a betrayal. They saw it as an extension of the script they had always written for me. The responsible one, the fixer, the invisible sponsor. I pushed my chair back and stood. "Here is what is going to happen," I said. "My lawyer will work with the bank to remove my name from this loan. I will not be paying another cent toward the house, the business, or your medical bills. If the bank or the court pursues this further, that will be between you and them." My mother's eyes filled with angry tears. "You are tearing this family apart." "No," I replied softly. "I am just stepping out of the way while the cracks you made finally show." My father still had not said a word. For a brief second, I almost wished he would speak up, say he was sorry, admit he had been wrong. But silence was the only loyalty he had ever truly mastered. I left money for my coffee on the table, picked up the folder, and walked out into the winter air. Behind me, through the glass, I saw them still sitting there, small in the booth like characters in someone else's drama. For once, I was not part of the scene. The consequences did not arrive all at once. They crept in slowly at first, like cold seeping under a poorly sealed window, then all at once like a door slamming open in a storm. The bank's investigation confirmed what we already knew. The loan had been authorized using my credentials without my consent. Because of the documentation Angela had gathered and the logs Jordan had provided, the company removed my name from the account and marked the authorization as fraudulent. But the money was still owed. Without my payments and without my credit to prop them up, my parents struggled. The business, already wounded by years of mismanagement, began to crumble. Vendors demanded payment, clients drifted away. The mortgage and the new loan both fell deeper into default. By late autumn, the house that had once been the stage for every performance of family unity sprouted a small sign near the curb. "Foreclosure proceedings initiated." Tasha drove me past it one afternoon when I was in town to sign more paperwork with Angela. The sign looked oddly small in front of the big old house. "You okay?" she asked, slowing the car. I stared at the windows where my mother used to hang garlands for Christmas, where she had once stood with Ryan for photos about legacy and inheritance. "I am sad it had to come to this," I said honestly. "But I am not sorry." Word spread quickly in their tight-knit community. Respectable families like ours were not supposed to end up in legal trouble or lose their homes, especially not over accusations of forgery and fraud. My mother did what she always did when backed into a corner. She rewrote the story. To some, she said I had overreacted to a paperwork mistake. To others, she hinted that I had always been difficult, cold, ungrateful. She framed herself and Ryan as victims of a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by a dramatic daughter and a greedy lawyer. But paperwork does not care about feelings. The district attorney's office opened a civil case related to the fraudulent authorization, focusing mainly on Ryan, whose name appeared on several communications with the mortgage company. Angela told me that criminal charges were unlikely, but fines and judgments were very real possibilities. The wedding Ryan had tried to resurrect with a new fiancé dissolved quietly, the venue lost with the house. The Christmas parties stopped, the photos on social media grew scarce. One evening, months after the foreclosure, my phone buzzed with a number I recognized but had not saved. My mother. I let it go to voicemail. Later, curiosity won and I listened. Her voice was thinner than I remembered. "You did not have to destroy us," she said. "We are your parents. You could have helped." There was a pause, a shaky inhale. "You will regret this when we are gone. The will is not what you think." Then the line clicked off. I replayed the message once. The words that stuck with me were not about regret or the will. They were the ones that revealed she still believed I had done something to her, rather than simply stopping her from doing something to me. When I told Angela about it, she shook her head. "People like your mother confuse consequences with cruelty," she said. "They call justice revenge because it feels like punishment when they have never had to face it before." Revenge, I thought. If this was revenge, it was a quiet kind. No dramatic confrontations, no shouting matches, no fists slammed on tables. Just paperwork boundaries and a refusal to keep subsidizing their version of reality. The tables had turned, but not because I flipped them over in a rage. I had simply walked away from a table I was never really allowed to sit at, and the imbalance they had built finally toppled itself. I moved to a small apartment in Buffalo at the start of the new year. It was not fancy, but it had big windows that looked out over a narrow parkway where kids walked home from school and older couples took slow evening strolls. For the first time in a decade, every bill that came through my mail slot had only my name on it. Rent, utilities, internet. Nothing tied to the Lane family mansion or the fading family business. I bought a secondhand couch, a small kitchen table, and a lamp that cast warm light in the evenings. I hung shelves myself, hands steady as I pressed anchors into the drywall. There were no late-night calls about emergencies, no texts with the word urgent in them, no subtle reminders about sacrifice or loyalty, or how much my parents had done for me as children, as if that debt could never be repaid. The quiet felt strange at first. I would catch myself glancing at my phone, expecting it to light up with some crisis only I could solve. When it did not, a wave of both relief and grief washed over me. I started going for walks after work, letting the cold air clear my head. One afternoon, I passed a small community center with a handwritten sign advertising a support group for adult children of toxic families. I almost kept walking. I had spent enough time reading dramatic posts online, listening to other people's family drama, as a way to escape my own. But something tugged at me. The next week I went in. We sat in a circle of folding chairs, people my age and older, some with gray hair and gentle faces that reminded me of the women who loved watching family stories on television. They shared tales of favoritism, manipulation, emotional blackmail, and sudden estrangement. Tears fell. Laughter bubbled up in odd places. When it was my turn, I hesitated. Then I told them about the Christmas vow renewal, the will, the home equity loan, the forged signature. I told them about being excluded from family only while my bank account funded their life. I expected judgment. What I saw instead were nods of recognition. A woman old enough to be one of my clients at work leaned forward. "You did the hardest thing," she said. "You walked away before you lost yourself completely." Later, as I rode the bus home, those words replayed in my mind. Revenge in the stories I used to consume always looked dramatic. Public confrontations, humiliating reveals at weddings or Thanksgiving dinners, hidden truths about inheritance exposed at the last minute, a lawyer reading a will that cut the toxic relatives out and rewarded the long-suffering protagonist. My story was quieter. No dramatic reading of a will where my parents learned a moral lesson. No judge delivering a speech about justice in a courtroom packed with spectators. Just a steady recalibration of where my responsibility ended and theirs began. I started to build small rituals of peace. Saturday mornings with coffee and a book instead of scanning my account. Phone calls with friends who asked about my day instead of my money. Occasional emails from Jordan at the mortgage company or Angela with updates, each one shorter as the case wound down. One evening, I came across an old family photo buried in a box of paperwork. It showed my parents, Ryan and me, standing in front of the house long before loans and foreclosures and online accusations. We were all smiling, squinting into the sun. For a heartbeat, nostalgia pricked at me. Then I looked closer. My brother was in the center. My parents angled toward him. I stood slightly to the side, half turned, my smile a little unsure already on the edge of the frame. The photo was not proof that things had once been perfect. It was proof that the dynamic had always been there. I slipped the picture back into the envelope and put it at the bottom of the box. The past could be archived. It did not have to be displayed. Spring came slowly to Buffalo, the snow receding in reluctant patches, the trees taking their time to bud. One chilly evening, I sat by my window watching the last of the frost melt on the parkway. My phone buzzed with an email from Angela. The subject line read, "Final judgment entered." I opened it, heart beating calmly this time. The court had formally recognized the forged authorization, removed my obligations from the loan, and reaffirmed the bank's right to pursue repayment through standard foreclosure and collection processes against my parents and Ryan. In plain language, it meant the financial and legal mess was no longer tied to me. No more surprise notices, no more lurking debts, no more wondering if some hidden clause in a will or a contract would reach out and snag me years down the line. I closed the email and leaned back. People like to say that revenge is sweet, that the best karma is watching the people who hurt you get hurt in return. But sitting there, I did not feel sweetness, I felt relief. What my parents and Ryan were now facing was not my victory. It was the cost of their choices finally coming due. They had gambled with the house, with the company, with my credit, and lost. My victory, if I had one, was quieter. It lived in the fact that I could sip my coffee in the morning without dread curling in my gut, that I could plan my future without factoring in what drama might explode next in that old Ohio town. It lived in the simple truth that I had stopped letting their version of family swallow my entire self. Every so often, I still thought about the will they had signed on Christmas Eve. I wondered if my mother had kept her threat, if she and my father had written me out entirely, leaving whatever remained to Ryan. The thought no longer stung. Let them keep the legacy they valued so much. The house was gone. The business was crumbling. The illusion of a perfect family had shattered. What I had gained was something they could not sign away in any document. Boundaries, self-respect, the ability to say no without drowning in guilt. That was my inheritance, one I had written for myself. If you are listening to this and you have ever been the invisible one in your own family, the reliable daughter, the overlooked sister, the quiet sponsor of someone else's happy photos, then I want you to hear this clearly. You are allowed to step back. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to let other people feel the full weight of the consequences they created without rushing in to cushion their fall. It might look like revenge to them. They might tell everyone you destroyed the family, that you are selfish, cold, ungrateful. They might rewrite the story for anyone who will listen. But deep down, you will know the truth. You did not flip the table. You just got up and walked away from it. And sometimes that is the only way to save the parts of yourself they never learned to see. If you were in my place, what would you have done? Would you have kept paying and stayed in the picture? Or would you have walked away like I did and watched from a distance, as everything they took for granted finally collapsed? Tell me. I want to know. And if my story sounds anything like yours, stay with me. There are more stories of revenge, of family drama, of betrayal and payback and quiet rebirth, where the tables turn not with a shout, but with a single steady decision to choose yourself.